Hello, friends. Welcome you to this SMUS MOOC on universal design, accessibility planning, and social inclusion. This MOOC has been created under the Global Center of Spatial Methods for Urban Sustainability at the Technical University of Berlin, funded by the German Academic Exchange Services, that is DAAD. This MOOC and its modules have been curated under the aegis of Laboratory of Inclusive Design at IIT Roorkee. To introduce myself, I am Professor Gaurav Raheja, working as a professor at the Department of Architecture and Planning at IIT Roorkee. As part of this module, we shall try to focus on the introduction to universal design, accessibility planning, and social inclusion as an overarching idea, concept, and break down to various sections or various modules as part of this MOOC as its contents. Let's have a look at what are we going to learn in this entire MOOC. In a very brief manner, if I were to explain this, the two prime learning objectives for this particular MOOC are first, to evolve a comprehensive understanding about the interlinkages between these three keywords: universal design, accessibility planning, and social inclusion as concepts. Secondly, in this MOOC, we also aim to sensitize our audience with professional insights from India and Global South towards a human-centric approach to our built environments. As we move further, we shall learn in detail about all these aspects as a foundation for this intersection between accessibility planning, social inclusion, and universal design as an overarching theory. So let's get started with Module 1, Session A. I hope you can look at this slide with images of lots and lots of people. The question is, what do we see in that? Do we see variety, diversity, or similarity? And it's an important precursor to begin this whole course, that who do we create this built environment for? How do we bring the empathetic approach into this understanding? And how can we aspire and together create an inclusive world? It is perhaps not possible if we do not think about humans and their coexistence in the same environment. But the important question is, does the environment accommodate human diversity or everyone? For example, does our built environment create a certain space and understanding in which children feel safe, in which women feel safe, in which persons with disabilities can participate, elderly can move, or does it create a situation in which we have to find alternative means of adaptation? Looking at India as a region, as a country, as a subcontinent, there's so many ways in which we can look at. It's a huge country, I would say. More than a country, it's an extremely diverse human demographics. We are linguistically diverse, regionally diverse, geographically diverse, climatically diverse, and all these diversities add layers of complexity into the human and the built environment interface. It's important to therefore start looking at this vision from a little bigger picture perspective. As the data says, by 2050, more than half of India's population will be living in urban areas. And this is one glimpse of how our urban areas look like: dense, complex, diverse, colorful, yet engaging and managing amongst themselves. And this would include children, men and women, elderly, transgender, people with situations, which we would call them as situational disabilities, people with health conditions, locomotor disabilities, visual impairment, hearing impairment, speech impairments, cognitive conditions, and other neurodiverse conditions of human existence. And I would say much more than this. Because this explains that humans have huge intersectionalities amongst them, and we need to accommodate for them in the design of a built environment. So, if you look at any environment for that matter, what does it pose for us? Does the environment facilitate or provide invisible barriers? And how do we address these barriers, these conditions, through spatial, physical, as well as the instruments of intervening into the built environment through a sociological understanding as well? We need to see the world through this lens of diversity and intersectionality. Looking at a complex environment like this of the Manik Chowk, a public space in the city of Ahmedabad in India, this space transforms itself at multiple times of the day through distinct functions. Morning, one function is happening, in the evening and the night, it is settling down with a function of public recreation around activities of food. If you see it this way, there are many different lenses to understand how the built environment and space is coming together cohesively, including a large variety of people in them. And this leads us, therefore, to a bigger remark. Are we celebrating this diversity? Are we able to celebrate this diversity in our built environment? Or are we drawing the lines of exclusion by segregating society, people, in different forms of built environments and saying this urban development is meant for exclusive class of people while the other one is for another class? And such questions is what we raise further at a built environment scale when you see how people with visual impairments are interacting, let's say, with a street environment, with a bus shelter. And this leads us to the broader understanding of the three keywords that this entire course is building upon: universal design, accessibility, and social inclusion. Friends, in order to simplify this, all I would suggest you to understand for time being is that universal design is an approach, it's a theory, it's a system of thinking. Accessibility is an intended means. Yes, access is important. Access to what? Access to education, access to housing, access to mobility, access to healthcare, access to any other form of life, including employment, are what is a basic means for living a life. But the larger goal that we are all pursuing is the goal of social inclusion. Now, how do we achieve this goal? It's perhaps not one person's job, but it is important that we understand that and not mix up and confuse between three words: that universal design, accessibility, social inclusion perhaps are interrelated, but how they can be mutually complementing the understanding is what is very critical at this stage. So, inclusion is a goal where we feel one with the social landscape that we are in. The lines of divisive societal structures perhaps could diminish if the built environment could also be conditioned around them. And therefore, this brings us to a very important way to understand through this course is look at people as one dimension of this whole interaction and the built environment as the other. Moment the two interact with each other, there are few possibilities. One possibility is that people are able to interact well with the built environment and everything becomes accessible. And if that is the case, I would say the built environment has transformed itself to an inclusive level of operations. But there are other situations that people, while interacting with the built environment, face barriers, challenges to interact with it. And this brings us to a case of, we would call them exclusion, barriers. So, this is the larger goal, and we all wish to achieve inclusion, and hence this course, because we believe this understanding at a foundational level for all of us, irrespective of our professions, will matter in translating this thought into reality. So the question is why and what can we do about it? I would say the why is the understanding of the challenges and the needs of people with disabilities and their diverse needs. What can we do? Well, we need to find out what are the solutions, best practices, and continue to innovate based on examples and contextual understanding of the context of India and other regions of the world from all over. We also need to understand how policy plays a role. What are the overarching policies through which we can achieve or possibly move in the direction of accessibility and inclusion? And finally, it does require research tools and methods to conduct these grounded studies to diagnose the issues in a better way. It's important to therefore learn and kind of stretch ourselves, whether in this course or beyond, to understand the perspectives from the Global South. Because several conditions of Global South, based on economic principles, based on the democratic forms of governance, based on the climatic parameters, and based on the people's landscapes, becomes crucial for us to see how can we learn from each other in order to shape our built environments with possibly this understanding of better access and inclusivity. Friends, I hope you can see on your screens the 17 Sustainable Development Goals represented through these 17 colored sectors of a circle. It is important to understand that when we are thinking sustainability, that what goes into the whole understanding and making this wheel complete. Even if we work on one dimension, one parameter, I believe it's a lot of work to be done. And the entire world is converging towards these 17 goals because they are critical in bringing the world with some degree of equitable existence. So, in order to understand this, I would say in this particular course, it is touching upon basically goal 11, which is talking about the goal of sustainable cities and communities, within which, if you read, it talks about affordable and sustainable transport systems, inclusive and sustainable urbanization, providing access to safe and inclusive green and public spaces. However, it is also our understanding that under the same set of goals, it is crucial that they are understood with a wider linkage. Because when you work with even one goal, it has an impact on the other. And perhaps they are mutually supportive. So if we can achieve inclusive sustainable urbanization, I believe it should reflect reduced inequalities. I believe it would possibly be catering to clean water and access to basic sanitation. And perhaps we're aspiring for a world where gender equality, good health, well being are all collectively addressed in an inclusive way. So the question now is, who is this MOOC for? Well, I would say it's for anybody who's curious to work in this interdisciplinary domain of accessibility and social inclusion. However, to further specify, it would be of great interest for people from the backgrounds of architecture, planning, and engineers, people working in the fields of disabilities and diversity, urban local bodies, civic bodies, and urban professionals who may be working through a cross disciplinary lens in this domain, policy makers, students, and anyone who's interested in this domain. So, what does this module contain? So, in the next few slides, I'm going to take you through a broad section of 12 modules and what it basically contains. Module 1, like this one, Module 1A, focuses on the introduction to the MOOC in the holistic manner. The Module 1B focuses on understanding demography and its basic concepts because I think the whole story starts from people. Module 2 focuses on understanding the concepts of diversity and disability. Through its sessions A, B, and C, it uncovers a theoretical view of disability, what it means, disablement as a process. Then the idea of disability through its various types, needs, and barriers. And third, the diversity, which is the types, needs, and barriers as further part of its conclusion. The module 3 focuses on universal design as a broad theory and its key principles, which popularly we know them as the 7 principles of universal design. Module 4 shall focus on universal design from an Indian lens and talks about India perspectives along with the 5 principles that the universal design India theory propounds. Incidentally, I have been one of the co-authors with that. The Module 5 focuses on creating inclusive mobility through healthy streets, in which we shall talk about introduction to healthy streets, street design principles, and how do we transform cities towards creating healthy streets, leading to Module 6, which shall focus on building gender-friendly cities. Module 7 focuses around the lens of children. How do we create child-friendly urban environments? What do they actually mean? And what is the broad concept around it? In the module 8, we shall sensitize our audience and through this engaging module on children independent mobility because we believe mobility is critical to any walk of life. And how do we look at our urban scenarios and children who, as one very critical stakeholder, must play a part in the whole process of being included? Module 9 focuses from the policy lens on policy landscapes for accessibility and inclusion. In the 2 sessions that we have for this module, 9A, we talk about global policies and measures for inclusion, while 9B focuses on Indian policies and measures for inclusion. Module 10 is on design thinking as an approach for accessibility and social inclusion. Through a hands-on driven practice, in this particular module, we shall learn how do we build a structure of design thinking in achieving accessibility and social inclusion through a practical example. Module 11 focuses on a word called research. Friends, accessibility and social inclusion are slightly long drawn subjects. They need to continuously evolve with how human lives, human demographics, human cultures, and social structures are evolving in the age today. Research is a paramount dimension to advance progress on inclusivity. Unless we know how do we do that, I think it will be hard for us to continue manifesting the outcomes of data into practice. So in this module, we shall focus to understand the various tools and methods to conduct research. And module 12, finally, is the last module of this entire course, which shall focus on the title Inclusive Urban Futures. I believe based on these 12 modules, we shall gather a broad understanding on the whole canvas of universal design, accessibility planning, and social inclusion. We look forward to meet you in the next session, which is Module 1, Session B, on the title Understanding Demographics and Basic Concepts. And based on this, I would say we look forward to engage further with you in this MOOC, and I welcome you to this entire MOOC program and further modules once again as I sign off from the Laboratory of Inclusive Design at IIT Roorkee, and thank you for a very patient hearing.